Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Walk in Faith. I'm at the Christ Cathedral in Orange County, and we're here for an amazing premiere. Jesus Thirsts. Stay tuned for a new episode of Walk in Faith. God bless you. So tell me, what an exciting film, Jesus Thirsts. Is there a correlation between people leaving the church and also sort of denying the fact that the Eucharist is Jesus Christ?
I'm not a theologian by any means. I help head up a software company called eCatholic. But I think, if you want my personal opinion and how this works, I came back because of the Eucharist in college and because of campus ministry. And I think at the end of the day, leading people to Christ through the Eucharist has been life-changing for me. It's been life-changing for a lot of friends and family that I know. And at the end of the day, I'm hoping that we can make an impact by getting more people to see this film, bringing them closer to Christ, and hopefully building stronger families. I think that's a big part of it.
Tell me about it. You just said that when you came back to Christ, when you had that sort of awakening. What happened? What was it? Tell me.
It's a fun story. Fallen away. Short version is there was a scandal at my home parish. Didn't go to church forever. Met a seminarian at the time that's now a Catholic priest, and I jokingly said to him, man, like, you've got all this joy and life about you. What's your secret? He said, man, I have Jesus. And that was my introduction to Christ, and he led me along that journey, along with so many other great Catholics in my life. So just so happy to be here. Never thought, if you'd asked me 10 years ago that I'd be doing something like this. But for those of you that don't think Jesus is real, he definitely is. And just take a step out of your comfort zone and come and see what it's all about.
Like I said, I saw you in the elevator and I felt the presence. There was definitely a presence there. Just the way you entered, your spirit, and the way you greeted everybody. So, and you didn't know that I was doing interviews. So,
no,
God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
I got a quick question for you, right?
Yes.
So now, powerful film. My son the other day, he's 8 years old, just received this, first Holy Communion. And on the way to church, he said, my heart was pounding, right? Pounding before he received the Eucharist. At 8 years old, their heart's pounding. At 12, a lot of times we see their heart is silenced. What has changed? Why are 12 and 13-year-olds walking away from the church? They don't feel the presence of Christ in the Eucharist. What has changed?
That's interesting you say that. Research shows that the median age of religious disaffiliation in our country is 13 years old. That doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? Research also shows there's basically three different kinds of classifications of those kids that drift. One are those who feel injured, right? Grandma dies. How can a good and loving God take grandma or my parents away? My parents are divorced. All kinds of issues. Some kids have a hard time reconciling that. There's those who simply drift. I mean, I went to San Diego State University. I was a drifter, right? The world can be very alluring. And with mobile devices, kids are accessing these at earlier and earlier ages. The world is pulling them away from sacrality. And the third, category is those dissenters, those who make an intellectual decision. They can't reconcile some of the teachings of the church with what they think they believe. And so this film really pulls us back into the center, the source and summit of our faith. It's the Eucharist. Everything we believe in Catholics can be summed up in the Eucharist. Jesus' death, resurrection, giving himself to us for our transformation, not 2,000 years ago, but every time we celebrate the Mass, here and now.
Thank you so much for this film.
God bless you, man.
God bless you. Good luck. Amazing film. Amazing. I watched it yesterday on the plane. I loved it. Now, tell me, is there a correlation between people walking away from the church and the fact that there's 70% of the people do not believe in the Eucharist as the body of Jesus Christ?
Absolutely. This is why it's so important to have this film out, because even Catholics don't believe that. And I think, that this is the reason the film is done, because Jesus said, this is my body, this is my blood. It's in the Bible. And, there's very famous, Eucharistic miracles over the centuries, and the ones in Italy with the priest that didn't believe it himself, and he found flesh in his chalice. It turned out it was a heart muscle. It's tested out to be Jesus. All of that. Laziano is it called. So it's very important. If they knew that and they were consuming the host, that this was Jesus's body and blood, then they would be like, the churches would be packed. but they treat it like it's some kind of, snack at a toddler's. Yeah, like wine, like a little juice thing and a snack, and that's not what it is. So, yes.
One last question. The other day, my son just received his first Holy Communion, 8 years old.
Congratulations.
Thank you. On the way to church, he's telling me how his heart was pounding, palpitating in excitement at 8. But then at 12, the excitement becomes its silence. Their hearts are silenced. Why at 12, 13 years old do we see a huge percentage of Catholics walking away from the church?
I think it's because of peer pressure, and it's not cool to go to church. It's more cool to go to a concert or do this or do that. I don't know why God's not cool. So that's what we're trying to bring back. Like, these are miracles. These are happening every day still. This is not centuries ago. So that's what we want to do. That's the whole point of the film, is to get people excited. This is the real deal. Yeah.
Thank you. Amazing film. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Now, you're also part of the Jesus Thirst movement, right?
Yes.
Tell me about, we were going to host that in New York City. Tell me a little bit about that. And what's the follow-through, the follow-up after the event?
Yeah, so our Lord wishes that we really dive deeply, even more into our faith. So the movie really hooks us, gets us in, and then so the I Thirst movement is really going even deeper into what is the Eucharist, more and more about the sacraments, more about our faith as a whole, and also trying to help people learn more about the faith and evangelize better. And so we're just going deeper and deeper into the faith.
Why has there been such a decline where, especially within the youth, 12, 13 years old, where they don't feel the presence of Christ, or they don't believe the presence of Christ within the Eucharist?
Yes. Well, we have different phenomena. For example, like only Sunday Catholics, only go on Sundays, but really we're Catholic all the time. So we need to also learn about our faith all the time, really get other people into the faith all the time. We have also cafeteria Catholics who only want to pick and choose what they, think is true, but really we have to take the whole truth, which is from God. And so here, just give up and sacrifice our lives. So those are probably two big things which really lead to that decline.
I always say that too. They sort of create their own religion.
Yes.
Thank you so much. God
Thank
bless
you so much.
Thank you. In the film, you talk about spirituality. We see a lot of, especially the youth, and I work in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Everybody's spiritual. And you said a great comment or a great quote. You said, even the devil considers himself to be spiritual. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, the devil is spiritual but not religious. And it's a cop-out, man. When people say I'm spiritual but not religious, that's saying I have this general sense that we're made for a purpose, but I'm not going to put that into any tangible practice whatsoever. And I cannot just be a good person without being religious. And the answer is no. I mean, you can be good in other areas, but insofar as you're failing to actually ask the big questions about why you exist and then do something with that tangibly, you're profoundly morally failing, because we owe it to this maker. And every culture throughout history has figured this out. They haven't just been vaguely spiritual. They've given outward expression to what is spiritual. You go to the most distant jungles of Brazil, you go to ancient Rome, and you go to Christians, and all of us share that. And why? Because we're made for God. We're made to outwardly express that's spiritual, not just leave it hidden and do nothing with it. So yeah.
You're right, I see that too. They sort of create their own religion, their own through their spirituality. Even Catholics that I talk to too. If I say, why don't you attend Mass or why don't you pray regularly? They say, well, I'm spiritual, or I have their own religion in a sense. And it's changed so much. And also too, in the 60s, priests were portrayed so differently in Hollywood, right? They were just different types of people. And now we see in society, priests, the way they're portrayed, it's very negatively. What's changed in the past 50, 60 years?
Well, gosh, the abuse crisis, obviously, right? And then
masculinity crisis, I think, too.
Yeah. well said. There's a masculinity crisis. A lot of people don't know the beauty of. I mean, when you find a good priest who's not afraid to just be a man and be a leader, people want to demonize that. And then, in a society that is lacking a transcendent, that story of a transcendent, we forget God, right? And we forget the devil, and yet people still need both. Mm-hmm. So the devil in the new postmodern narrative ends up being the church, the thing that stands in the way of your, quote, fulfillment, right? I think a lot of people demonize priests. There's a lot of things converging on them. So good priests are my heroes, because they're out there saying, like, I'm going to keep doing this regardless of if people hate me.
And we share one. Father Capodanno.
Yeah, Father Capodanno, man. Yeah, buddy.
He's one that needs to be told.
Yes, he does.
God bless you guys. Thank you
bless
so
you,
much.
man.
Guys, amazing film. Like we said this morning over breakfast, unbelievable. But how do you gauge the success, like earthly success versus, feeding the kingdom or, the KPI and the Holy Spirit? How do we sort of correlate all that?
I think in a film like this, it's really, I think it's if one soul sees the reality of the Eucharist and turns to Jesus and gives their life to him. I mean, I think you can't really quantify that. So to us, I think this is more than box office numbers. It's more than anything that be quantified. It's all about transformation, conversion, and discipleship, I think.
I think in the film we talk about how this is a period Eucharistic revival in the United States. When we hear from Bishop Andrew Cousins in the film, who is the chair of the Eucharistic revival, he talks about how we're not here to start a program, we're here to start a fire. And I think that's ultimately coming out of this film. I think that's what we're hoping to have, to start a fire in people's souls, a belief, a real desire, and a love for the real presence of Christ in the Blessed Sacrament.
I love that he used that word fire, because honestly, at the end of the film, that's something that I wrote down. I felt this call to action, this flame that was ignited when I was a kid, but sort of has diminished a little bit. And a film like this sort of reawakens the spirit, reawakens the soul. But there is a 70% of the people in the United States, or probably beyond, that don't believe in the power of the Eucharist. How are we going to change their hearts and their spirit?
Well, I think you need to, number one, you have to let them know that there is a person of Jesus Christ, or this is a person that wants a personal relationship with you. And I think there are all kinds of other things you can bring to them. We talk about, so often people appeal to science today. We make it clear that science and faith are not mutually exclusive in the film. So there's entry points, there's gateways. We talk about Eucharistic miracles and how faith and science, there is a complementarity there. So there's a number of different avenues, but I think we have to be ready to go really deep on a one-on-one basis with people.
Last question, Tim, before they yell at me. You've worked on a lot of films. How has this film inspired, impacted you, changed your life?
I think every film, you get so involved. I mean, as you know, as a filmmaker, you get so deep into the material, into the interviews, into the content. They each affect you in a deep way. For me, this film has been transformative. It was the first deepening of my own relationship with Christ was through the Eucharist, was through Eucharistic adoration. So this film, to me, was coming back to really that first love that I had. And as you say, these things grow cold. We almost go numb. The more you go to Mass every Sunday, you kind of forget what really is there before us. So it's been a kind of meditation on the greatest gift that we have, Christ himself. And for me, it's been utterly transformative.
God bless you guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
See you at the pool. Jim, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Brother?
Doing well. Amazing film. Your part in the film really spoke to me. I know the impact that you must be making on when you visit prisons and stuff like that. Have you seen from your experience a reduction in crime, a reduction in recidivism when you visit prisons, or when you see inmates come to Jesus, or when they receive the Eucharist?
I think that people are completely transformed, right? We went to prison for this film. We were in Beaumont, Texas, in Styles maximum security prison. And I met a guy, when people are on fire and you can see it in their eyes and they have this big, huge smile. This guy's doing forever and he's on fire for the Lord. And he said to me, Jim, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm the happiest I've ever been. And he's in prison. He's completely on fire for Jesus. And to me, it spoke volumes to me. Sometimes we get caught up, right? Like, I'm going into the prison, I'm going to speak, I'm going to share my testimony, like somehow I'm important, when we know my testimony has nothing to do with me and everything to do with Christ. But you go in there, and you would think I would be the super happy guy. I'm out in the world, I'm going home in an hour. These guys were on fire. And they were so grateful. Bishop Toops came in, he did Mass, we had adoration, and I mean,
Do you think
the
it's
men
that
were just
they're
blown
sort of
away.
stripped of everything?
There's nothing left. I mean, when it's all taken away and there's nothing left, that's where Jesus came to me, right? The Lord sent his number one assistant on earth to retrieve me. I believe that with all my heart. Mother Teresa came to that prison for me. And here I am today, 30 some odd years later, still loving the Lord and doing his bidding, and you know, I got to make a film about her. Now I get to make a film about him.
God bless you, brother.
God bless you.
Nice seeing you.
See ya. Always a pleasure.
Deacon, amazing film. I watched it yesterday on the plane. I
thankful.
sat in when you did the Zoom. Really spoke to my heart. Really spoke to me. And there's so much I want to ask you, but just what was the movement or what was the inspiration behind this film?
The Eucharist is the foundation of everything as Catholics. And it breaks my heart that 2/3, near 70% of Catholics don't really believe in the real presence. There's never been a movie like this ever. Never been a film, a documentary that starts from the very beginning, the Last Supper, and how the church for literally 350 years, before the Bible was even put together, had the Mass as a foundation and all the way through. If we believe in the real presence, if we believe in the Mass, and we believe this is Jesus, our whole life is going to change. I mean, how could it not? We have 50 million Catholics that have left the church. And the bottom line is this, is that they never would have left if they believed in the real presence. They never would have left. So the bottom line, this film is the first of its kind. It's a must-see for so many people. Bring your children, bring everybody to go see it. Very important.
Two things. One is, as I'm watching the movie, I make films, I start to think about, like most people would, what about from the scientific angle? And you answered that in the film. All the questions that most of us struggle with or think, and you answered them. And one thing, too, my son just made his first Holy Communion, 8 years old, Mario, his name is, right? On fire for his faith. His heart's pounding when he receives the Eucharist. But at 12, the heart's silenced. Why at 12, 13 years old do we see, like you said, 70% of the Catholics walking away from the church? What has changed in society, culture, and religion?
So what's really important is that right now at age 8, children make a decision on whether or not they want to remain Catholic. We have not done a good enough job teaching our children. And that's why we are partnering with the National Catholic Educators Association across the country for all Catholic schools. So they're here tonight. They're an important partner with us because we've got to get to children. We've got to get them to understand this is not make-believe, this is real. This is incredibly, I can't think of anything more important. And so that's what this film is all about. It's truth. Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. This is truth. And the truth will set you free. And we need to be set free from the bondage that the world wants to offer us. Because the world offers a substitute. And people, when they believe, then everything changes.
Jesus warned us, right? You can't serve two masters. And in this case, the master is society, is the lies of culture. You did an amazing job. God bless you.
Well, God bless you too. I am so excited about this film, and we're going to go worldwide with it. We're going all over we've got partners from all over the world that want to market this, but we want this to have a long run in the U.S. Now's the time for Catholics to stand up and be counted. Now's the time to sell out the theaters, not for me, but for the Catholic Church, for our family, for everybody out there. They need to see the truth. And this film really pervades the truth like never before.
It's like a legacy piece. Thank you so much, Deacon.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless you. Nice meeting you.
The Eucharist is God's greatest way of showing us that He loves us.
Jesus' love is made present through the Eucharist. He didn't want to leave us orphans. He left us Himself in the Eucharist.
Our Lord comes to meet us tangibly because we're not just pure spirit. That's what Catholicism's all about. And in the Eucharist, man, the rubber hits the road.
La Eucaristía nos trae vida, nos trae esperanza y nos ofrece la vida eterna.
In the Mass, heaven comes down and we are actually taken up into this reality.
Lần lần họ hỏi chúng con sức mạnh của Cha để chịu đựng là gì? Sức mạnh giúp tôi chịu đựng là phép thánh thể.
That's where I got light. That's where I discovered the joys and beauties of my priesthood.
The Eucharist is the victory of our salvation. It is what freed us and liberated us from sin and death.
If God can transform bread and wine into his own body and blood, there is no limit to the power of his love.
Hey everybody, it's Craig Syracusa. I'm the host of Walk in Faith, and I'm also the executive director of the Emmaus Center. If you would like to find out ways that you can contribute and help us bring the Word of God, help us evangelize, please log on to emmausbrooklyn.org for more information. God bless you. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Walk in Faith. Always remember, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize through your words and actions. God bless you.